Art One-on-One with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome to Art One-on-One. I'm your host, pod boss Nichole Jordan, alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Burgher.
A master of ceremonies. Introduced by the pod boss herself, starting a brand new season, a brand new year of excellence. You've been eating candy canes with your blue tongue.
I did eat a candy cane.
So clearly we've already broken every New Year's resolution that we have started.
It was the only bad thing, and I ate a piece.
It's literally the first week of the year. So
thank you for pointing that out.
Wonderful. If I didn't point it out, my observant friends and colleagues and scholarly scholars would definitely have seen your blue tongue rolling around in your mouth.
You're
like
a
George
master
the Animal Steele.
I don't know if it's a master educator, but
I've got a master's in education, and I teach education, and I teach art. So I feel like I am.
You're a master of so many things. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, you're a master of something. But we'll move on.
Okay. Would you like me to start?
Yeah, please,
okay.
pod boss.
Since I am the boss?
By all means, pod boss. Don't let me slow your pace.
All right, well, let's start with Ask the Art Guides.
Ask the Art Guides is the longest-running segment on Art 101 with Mr. Burgher, and you have always done a great job of pulling a card to take our conversation down a primrose path of beauty. And so, whom have you pulled today?
I have pulled...
As I read over your shoulder.
Gustav Klimt.
Gustav Klimt?
Which I very much like. And I did actually know. He's probably one of the first artists that I knew and was aware of his art because of that movie that we watched.
One of our followers, Lori, recently commented on a past where we were talking about the movie, the Woman in Gold.
The Woman in Gold, I think.
Talked about, you didn't tell me I needed tissues, but loved the movie, thought it was great, was very much inspired by the story, as I think you were as well. And I thought it was a great story, great movie. And so Gustav Klimt, comes back to the pod.
And I'm going to choose inspiration today for
what is the saying?
Theme. Like gold, eroticism fluctuates with times.
Ooh. Like gold, eroticism fluctuates with time.
I chose that because knowing him and he was a very promiscuous...
Oh, see, I don't know. I haven't done a ton of research on Gustav Klimt. One of my goals for the year is to do a video on Gustav Klimt.
You do not have a video on him, because I searched for that video because you asked me to do that, and I just want to point out I did what you asked me to do.
Well, I did not. I don't have a video on him.
Well, clearly you don't. So clearly you need to make one.
That's one of the goals for the year. I need to make a Gustav Klimt video. Going to the saying. Now, what was it again? Like
gold, eroticism fluctuates with time.
And so he was a promiscuous fellow.
Yes. So then, I go and research a little bit when I pull a card because I'm not familiar with the artist.
And so what did you discover?
For that time period, he was very radical and obscene. Like his work was considered obscene.
That I knew.
And women obviously were his favorite subjects.
Right.
And apparently he wore a tunic to make art with nothing underneath all of the time. I thought that was interesting.
Now I have heard that. Now he did make art with like a big moo type deal on.
Yeah.
And
what did I say?
Tunic.
Tunic? I swear that's what somebody said it was.
I'm sure. I mean, it goes by a lot of different names, but he would wear like a big. It
looks like a gown, honestly.
like a nightgown type deal.
Yeah.
and he would wear that around. And I've done a couple videos on Klimt. Specifically, he would fix his paintings with cat pee because he loved the stray cats in the neighborhood.
That's right. I do remember that.
And he would do all kinds of kind of quirky, odd things. He lived kind of like a bohemian, you know, out in the just making his art and being a ding dong. But what a brilliant genius of an artist, though. At the same time,
I love his art.
And you know, like the Kiss. That's a very famous work of his. The one that's in that movie that we watched is also right in there.
What was the name of that one?
It's called The Woman in Gold, but it has another name. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
That picture, though, and I don't know if it's because I watched the movie and the meaning behind it or whatever, but I love that. I love that piece of art.
It's a very good...
And the gold in it. I love the colors. I love what is it, gold leaf that he uses?
Yeah.
That's something I learned today, too. And his father, there's another thing I learned about him. His father was he engraved gold. He was a gold engraver.
Oh.
So that's how he got into gold.
Okay, well, let's go back to the original statement.
Okay, you've asked me it twice. So would you like me to repeat it again?
Well, because you keep getting off the subject.
I did not get off topic. You did. Like gold, eroticism fluctuates with times.
Do you think that eroticism fluctuates with times? With times?
Yes. I mean, if you look at, it's kind of similar, but like his art during that time, now that would be no big deal.
True.
That art, you know, it would definitely not be considered obscene and
no,
and look like frowned upon.
No,
it's the same thing with eroticism, and we just talked about this, which I won't bring up the specific situation, but like what's considered okay as far as eroticism in your personal life, and I think it was very different back then,
right,
than it is now. News article.
So recently, there was a news article that had popped up about, news, as news does, just kind of popped up on my YouTube feed, and they were talking about how this chancellor of a very prestigious major university was removed from his post for creating somewhat inappropriate content with his wife and posting it on.
I think you said pornographic. Is that accurate, or you're just?
Yeah, no, it was porn, and
okay. Let's be clear here.
And they had written several books that were very over the top in terms of.
Oh, they wrote books too.
And they wrote books, but they used a different name to write these books, and the good people of the certain place said, "We good people don't want your kind around here," which, again, I understand. On one side, you have to have a level of professionalism, and you have to maintain a certain code of ethics. At the same time, if you want to be intimate with your wife, is that really against the code of ethics?
And it's to me, that's privacy. Like, right. I don't know how it leaked out, or I don't, maybe the lesson here is be careful about what you do with the content that you put forward if it's pornographic. But I think privacy-wise, that's my biggest, like, porn. What you want to do with your spouse is your private life, and that doesn't affect how you are as a professional, whatever he was, chancellor or
right. If you want to go out and be a swinger or whatever you want to do with your personal time, I think you should be allowed to do it. There are certain people that may or may not frown upon what it is you choose to do, but all things being fair and equal, keep private things private, and make sure that the people that you invite into your home or you distribute content to, I'm sure that there are people that get their feathers ruffled about the fact that I make YouTube channels or YouTube videos. And just today that we were working on a project and the kid was we were making little, this is my elementary students, and we were doing a little cutout thing with fish. We were making, how you fold paper and you cut it to look like
origami?
you're cutting paper to look like a snowflake.
Yeah.
We did that, but with fish. So we cut out a fish, and we were making little patterns.
Interesting.
And so this student was like, I want to make mine the Mr. Burgher YouTube fish. And he's like, will you write your name on it? And so I wrote my name on his little cutout fish.
You're so popular.
But again, like in their mind, maybe in parents' minds or whatever, it's like that's how they, he's on YouTube, he's famous. But
you better watch what you're doing on here then.
But and so people may frown upon the fact that we're talking about this sort of content even. But, it's not necessarily art related, but it's related to the topic brought up by the art. What do you call them? The art guides.
Well, and I think it's interesting because there's like always this how things like come back, of different time frames, like clothes and trends and whatever.
Right.
And I think the same thing happens like now we're coming into this age where we're getting less.
The age of Aquarius.
It is the age of Aquarius. That's from one of the podcasts I was listening to. That's why he knows it.
I pay attention.
You do. That's what I love about. One of the things I love about you.
One.
But my point is like freedom of speech. Like things are coming back around. It seems like where there's more restrictions on all that. Like we're almost going back in time when it comes to that stuff.
Well, you look at even in the ancient world. You have the ancient Greeks, and the ancient Greeks were very. You know what? Let it all hang out. It's fine. And then you see the Roman copies of the Greek artworks, and the Roman copies are all, let's put a toga on that. Let's put a little fig leaf on that. That's where the fig leaf actually comes from. It comes from the Romans. Like, let's cover that up. Let's show a little bit of modesty. And then throughout time, you have this ebb and flow of, you know what? Go have relations with whoever you want. Men, women, children, it doesn't matter. Well, no, we can't do that. That's illegal. And so, it's, the 60s is a whole lot different than the 50s. And, the 70s was different than the 90s. And every generation has its taboo of what you should or shouldn't do. And, we're living
what's acceptable,
right? And so what the way we live right now is inevitably going to change in the future. Either it's going to become more liberal or it's going to become more conservative, but it's going to change one way or the other.
Yeah. What's the saying? Like
birds of a feather.
No, it's about change. Like nothing.
Nothing changes. Like a
nothing
butterfly.
Stays the same. What is the? Oh man, there's a saying around change. No, there's a saying around change. It's like nothing stays the same other than, or constant other than change or something.
Only
like that.
two things are guaranteed: death and taxes. Benjamin Franklin.
No, I am not good at quotes, but that does make me. It makes me think of the video that I reviewed. Is there anything else you want to talk about with Gustav?
We can segue right into it. Let's segue away.
Okay. Well, when you were talking about like what's acceptable and not acceptable and the clothing and the nakedness and all that.
Right.
Okay, so the video I watched from Journey into the Archives.
Journey into the Archives?
Was from 4 years ago, and it was called Cleopatra Through Art.
Right. That's an oldie.
It is an oldie.
That's going back.
You are definitely more well-spoken now.
More well-spoken now than ever before. Yeah, I'm probably a little bit more clear on my delivery of things from, but there again, I think practice and doing it and the repetition.
You weren't bad for 4 years ago. I mean,
4 years ago,
is that what it was? 4 years ago. Yeah. But what it makes me think of when we're talking about acceptable and unacceptable is the fact that Cleopatra married two of her brothers.
She did.
What are their names? Ptolemy the 13th and Ptolemy the 14th, and that was acceptable.
Well, and again, for her to be, in order for her, if I can speak now that you've jinxed me, in order for her to be to be on the throne as the empress or whatever, she had to have somebody to rule with because she was a female. Correct. And she was the most qualified, most able-minded to do it. So they said, well, you gotta have somebody do it. So she's like, okay, let's put you with your little brother.
So if she was qualified to do it, then why couldn't she just do it? That's the thing. Are they doing that now? Are women able to be
rulers? Yeah. I don't think they have.
Not necessarily rulers, but whatever.
No. Like for example, the leader of Germany is a female. Last I knew, was a female, and she doesn't need a helper.
A man?
She don't need no man.
Good for her. So, okay, so yeah, I just thought that was a normal thing.
And the Queen of England. She married Queen Elizabeth. She
married her brother?
No. She married someone else, but he was never the king. She ruled on her own.
But she still had to be married.
She didn't have to be married. She wanted to be married. She loved her husband, I guess, because they were married a long time.
Okay.
But he was never the king. And there's rules with monarchs. Was this a very random thing, or did this happen all the time during this time period? Well,
marrying your brother.
The Queen of England.
I'm back to Cleopatra.
All the way back, a long way from Cleopatra.
I understand. I mean,
she was old.
I'm asking
not
you,
like that old.
Back in Cleopatra days.
But no, it was very common to have like females that. I mean, it was very uncommon to have a female that was a ruler, but it was, and so that's why that probably was the case. But it was also very common to have divided power. Most people didn't want to have a dictator. They didn't want to have a emperor.
I am talking specifically about marrying your brother. Was that a normal thing?
When it comes to royalty,
okay.
And people in they wanted to keep the power in the house. They wanted to keep the family in the bloodline. So if there wasn't somebody like not too far that you could marry, then yeah, it might not have been your brother, but it probably would have been your cousin.
Well, and at one point she married 16-year-old, 14-year-old?
Yeah, her 16-year-old brother. And yeah, who wants to marry their 16-year-old brother? Of all the people you could marry, it's like, you want to marry that little butt monk that's doing God knows what in the restroom and weird and smells funny.
You do remember I have 3 boys. It's not a good thought.
So you know.
No.
Imagine you being you and somebody saying, all right, we want you to be in control. You got to marry one of them. Because she ended up ruling with one of her sons, too. At the end. Caesarion.
Yeah.
Who was the biological son of Julius Caesar.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Julius Caesar.
Because that makes me think of, what's the movie? You like this movie?
Gladiator.
Yes.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Is that on Gladiator?
Maxim. Yes.
Oh, well, I've only watched that once. I didn't love that movie. I don't like fighting movies. We've already talked about this.
Well, it's a great one.
I like more romance. Okay, so what else?
You had me at hello. You had me at hello.
Tom Cruise. What movie was that?
Jerry Maguire.
Yes, Jerry Maguire. That was a good movie. Okay, so more into so if I'm being honest in that video, there was a lot of I'm not going to do the rating scale because
we don't do that anymore.
We don't do that anymore. But I feel like there was a lot of detail that I didn't need to know. This is the thing, history. Yeah. And I talk about I don't want to know. She married this guy, and then she married this guy, and then she married her son, and then I don't know. But my question to you is, you have Cleopatra through art. Mm. So what specifically seems like art to you about this video?
Not a lot.
Because I know this is a video very different from...
There's not a lot about
I have my ideas, but I don't know what
it's just the fact that I mean, there's obviously art that's being made about Cleopatra, how she's represented, and oftentimes she was represented in a very fictitious sort of way. Like, people were oftentimes like, oh, the beauty of Cleopatra, where really, outwardly, she was not known to be a beautiful woman. She was beautiful because she was smart. She was beautiful because she was intellectual. She was beautiful because of the capabilities of her brain, not because her face was pretty, not because her body was gorgeous, but because her brain was gorgeous. Her brain was great. And so I think that the ideas of beauty, just like the ideas of what is or isn't acceptable romantically in the public, or what's acceptable in whatever way you want to talk about it, the vision of what true beauty has also evolved.
It's very fluid.
It's become very superficial over time. It's become very...
Yeah, but it's going back. Again, see, this is one of those things that it was like, models and swimsuit, and now it's like you see all these ads come out with larger women, and I love all of that. But it's like that ebb and flow that we just talked about earlier.
And again, it's one of those things where it used to be you had to be a 6'3", 100-pound model that had some sort of eating disorder, perhaps, or just genetically gifted to look a certain way, have a certain body type, and that's what you had to be. And you had to, if you were any other, if you were a non-white, you're out. If you were a non-blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, you're out.
No boobs, you'd be out.
Yeah, there are lots, and so it's all of those things that I think are, the idea of what beauty has truly evolved for the better.
Thankfully.
In our times, anyway. Mm-hmm. Let's see what the future has. But, it's evolved in that regard. But it's also, I wouldn't mind it going back to, listen, a beautiful person can get really ugly really fast when they're dumb as a post. I can't tell you how many dates I've gone on in the history of my life, lady.
Oh my goodness.
Here we go. That you go out on a date with a girl who's, she's a 10 from, whatever. But then you talk to them and it's like, this person is a dumbass. I'm done.
Maybe you should have talked to them before. I mean, you would have figured that out.
Well, again, I think that that's...
You were looking at their pictures. That's what you're doing. You're wanting some hot mama to be your...
I want a hot mama.
Sugar mama.
I want a hot mama. And then you do what you got to do, and you look at their picture, and you're like, yeah.
You're being really judgy right now.
But it's the truth.
I think you have evolved in that sense.
And I think that it's much more, to me, it's much more important for someone to be intelligent and educated and traveled and
kind
and all kinds of things beyond what does their face, what do they look like, more than just what they look like. Now, granted, what they look like is important, but it's not nearly as important as what's on the inside.
I don't remember what the true Cleopatra, because you showed so many different movie clips in there
lots.
That, like, I don't even know what the true Cleopatra was. She like a large?
No.
No,
she was just, in terms of her facial structure, she wasn't the prettiest, but when it comes to other things, super attractive.
Well, I love it in this video because when I thought of art and what you would say, that actually is what I wrote down. Like, I figured it would be about the definition of beauty and how that ties in with art and how that can be different to, I mean, just like what some people like as far as artwork.
For sure.
Versus what they don't like.
Well,
what's that called? Their
beauties,
preferences.
Yeah, I mean, what we look at in terms of a painting, a drawing, a sculpture, or whatever is very subjective. There is no rule.
Subjective.
There is no rule to say this is good art and this is bad art. I mean, it's up to you to decide.
It's a very personal thing.
For sure.
So in speaking about Cleopatra and like how beauty is subjective, it makes me think of Roy Lichtenstein, which is the video that I watched from this past week.
It's a new video.
I did a lot of video watching.
But how does... I guess I don't understand how Cleopatra ties into Roy Lichtenstein, but we'll just go with it.
Listen, let me finish.
That's a hard segue.
No, it's not. It's definitely not.
Okay.
Because, like I was saying, art is subjective.
Yeah.
And he viewed... So his view of why he produced art was very subjective. I don't know if that makes sense, but he didn't care about what the subject was or what he was creating. He was more...
It was more about the process.
Exactly. So it was... I was just saying what would that be? The viewpoint of the artist and what's important to them is very subjective, as well as seeing it from the outside.
And I really appreciate that about Roy Lichtenstein. I do like the fact that, I mean, he's doing these pop culture things with the comics and the whole bit, but to him, from interviews and reading things and looking at things that he has said and done and whatnot, he very much was more about the process of making than he was about the actual... All right.
It kind of floored me that he was, like he said, like some paintings he would start upside down, some he would start from the side, and it was like never a planned thing. He just kind of, and you could paint from any angle, and that's which, man, I think that would be so difficult.
That's what I do. When I draw in a circle, and I spin the work. Clearly, you've never watched me draw.
Okay, well, this is a topic of conversation this past week.
And one of the things that I am, I want to make good videos, I want to make good content, but I also want to work on my own personal art creations. And so, being a part of that work of mine, I definitely want to explore that and work on that more. And but when I work, there is no top.
Really?
Yeah, I spin it in a circle.
It seems like that would be so difficult.
Because I don't give I have a sketch, I have a plan, and from that sketch or that plan, I don't give anything I don't identify anything. And it's easier for your brain not to identify things if you're looking at it upside down or to the left or to the right.
So you can see the end piece in your mind.
Well, yeah, but like I know, like for example, if I'm going to paint your portrait, I know in the end that portrait's going to be of you. But when I'm making it, I'm consciously not focusing on it being you. I'm looking at, here's the line, here's the edge, here's the shape. Here's the pattern that I'm trying to make, and I'm focused on the angle, I'm focused on the shape, not the, that's got to be a nose. Well, it being a nose, it's a piece of paper, it's flat. It's not ever going to be a nose. It's very Rene Magritte in thinking. This is not a pipe, but that's not for you, that's for them.
I have no idea what year.
But watch this. And then you'll better understand after you. Anyway, the editing will clear it up. But to the point, it's never going to be that thing that you're trying to make. It's going to always be a drawing or a painting. And so in order for you to create that illusion, you've got to create this edge, you've got to make it shadowed this way, you've got to create this form with your media of choice.
Are there a lot of artists that work that way, or is he very...
No, I mean, I wouldn't say that... I don't think he's doing anything mind-blowing. There's a lot of artists that do that. When I teach kids to draw, that's how I approach it. Don't think about these things because your brain will fill in the blank of the bias. Like if I say draw a face, you're always going to draw it the same way. You're always going to draw two eyes, a nose, and a mouth looking straight at you. that's the face you're going to draw every single time. Whereas if I say, okay, I want you to draw this shape, this shape, this shape, this shape, oh, all of a sudden now you've got something that looks different than you would create if I just said, draw this thing.
Okay. And pop art was primarily what he did as far as...
That's what, I mean, he did abstraction, he did lots of different things, but he was 100% known as a pop artist. Yes. That's where he got his...
Was it you that said he liked that because he could bring his like history and like childhood back into, or was it him that said that?
It's, I mean, he may have said it, but I know I said it
in the video
also. I mean, I've said that of him. I mean, it's very nostalgic. You know, he wanted to create some things that were interesting and unique to his childhood, and he wanted to bring that back. So thinking about Roy Lichtenstein and his work, are there things that you would want to buy from your childhood? Like, you remember way back...
You are very much that way.
Well, you remember when we went to that antique shop. We went to this little antique-y town, and they had all these, like, yeah. Well, they don't.
I know, but Walnut, Iowa.
Well, the thing is, they had, like, this little antique-y shop, and they had all kinds of toys, and I ended up buying an Ewok Village from 1982. I had one as a kid. I destroyed it, and I'm like, I want one back. And so I bought a complete Ewok Village so I could put my Star Wars toys on it. And it was a good deal, a good price, and you were like...
It was not.
Yes,
that's
it
all
was.
in your mind.
It was a better price than I could find anywhere. Because it was a good price.
He was going to buy it no matter what.
Well, I was, but it was a good price. And
you tell yourself.
And I enjoyed setting that up when I had that
you have a lot of that stuff, like wrestling stuff, and
yeah.
I, on the other hand, I'm like, no.
If it's got Hulk Hogan on it, I'm probably going to buy it. If it's like an action figure or a toy or something, I mean, it's hard for me to walk past that. Or if, you know, like those Funko Pops.
Oh, jeez. Although I did like the Ted Lasso.
All those different things, you know, it's like, oh my gosh. But Ted Lasso is not really nostalgic. That's
I know. I'm just saying I liked that Funko Pop.
But, so there's nothing of nostalgia like a certain time of your life that you'd like, oh my gosh, I want to... strawberry shortcake.
Music from my I love when you were just quoting Snoop here, singing Snoop about half an hour ago, and now I can't get it out of my head. That music from like my high school sporting events and things like that. I love.
Sometimes I speak lyrics and put a little gin and juice into our setup of the thing, and
I have met Snoop and taken a picture with Snoop in person.
There you go.
I can't find it, but...
And Burt Reynolds. No. Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. Yes. That was amazing. He was, like, so super nice. Okay, back to Roy Lichtenstein.
Back to Roy Lichtenstein.
Yes. I'm very much having to reel you back in.
Yeah, that's all you're doing.
Another thing I guess that I thought was interesting about him is how many people really had an opinion of whether he was actually an artist or more of a plagiarist with his artwork.
I think that it really goes both ways for him. You know, I think that there's a line where if you're copying it directly, it's plagiarism. If you change it and modify it, it's different. And I think he really said it best in the video. Just because something looks like something doesn't mean that they're identical. Just because Coke and Pepsi kind of look the same doesn't mean they're the same. Just because one camera looks like another camera doesn't mean that they're the same brand of camera. Just because one movie is kind of like another movie doesn't mean that they're the same movie. Just because his artwork looks like the artwork of comic book artists doesn't mean that they're the same, although when you're a comic book artist and you're getting paid next to nothing to create comic books, and you're doing all of that work and all of that labor and making probably very little money off of that work, unless you're, Stan Lee or something. But for the most part, those artists weren't making huge sums of money. And then somebody takes that and makes $20 million
then it becomes a problem.
To make a copy of your thing. Then it's like,
So if there are only slight differences, like one of his defense, like a quote, not necessarily a quote, but like a thing he said in defense of someone saying that he was more of a plagiarist, is that in his artworks that the differences aren't great, but very crucial.
Yeah, right, exactly. And again, it's not that there's a huge difference between, like, if you look at his work and the other work side by side, it's not like there's a huge difference, but there is a difference. And because there's a difference, then it's not.
This is what I don't understand, though, because not to get on a different, but like musically, Ed Sheeran was like in the news not that long ago because he was.
Ed Sheeran? Yeah, who we've also, we haven't met him, but we saw him really close.
Here, I'll tell you what he calls him, Ed Sheeran.
I don't know.
He calls him Ed Sheeran. He does. Yes, we did watch Ed Sheeran in concert. He was amazing, but he was in the news because they were trying to say that he
stole riffs and
and there was very slight differences, and so they said no. But that to me seems like such a gray area in music and art. Like music any difference makes it not plagiarism. I don't.
If it's different, it's not the same.
So that's it.
If it's different, it's not the same. I mean, and I think that ultimately that's where our laws stand. If it's different, it's not the same. If it's the same, then it's the same.
But to me, if you're doing that over and over and over again, where you're taking someone else's piece of art and then you're making something that's slightly different, and that's all you do, that to me is not an artist.
But here's the thing. Ed
Sheeran
making his guitar thing a little bit different, and and the way that he demonstrated that in court was by showing how 35 different songs all sound similar, but they are all different. And over time, he shows that. Whereas, like, Vanilla Ice taking David Bowie song and sampling it into his video or into his Ice Ice Baby hit, well,
that was one of my nostalgic.
He had to pay David Bowie considerable amounts of money for taking his riff. I mean, he sampled it. It wasn't that it was different. He took his music and plugged it into his music. And rappers and people like that have done that time after time after time, which is why Sting got a lot of money from P. Diddy, or whatever his name is nowadays, or, Vanilla Ice paying David Bowie, or whomever that have fallen into that. Okay, we're going to sample this guitar riff and then use it in.
So, do you think he's a true artist?
Sure, I do.
If that's all he did was just slightly changed pieces of art and produced artwork based on that, you would consider that a true artist.
I think
that's all he did. I'm not saying that is all he did. I'm just asking if you would consider that to be a true artist.
I think what he did was, he's a true artist. And again, I think that how artists approach their art is different. Some artists approach art because they want to be super creative and make original pieces of artwork, like a Pablo Picasso or someone like that. You have other artists that are more into the concept, like Marcel Duchamp or Roy Lichtenstein. You have other artists that are more into just focus on the process of making art side. They're more into this side or that side. There's a lot of different artists that focus on different aspects of the creative process, and one is not different than the other, but they're all, and one's not exclusively artistic over the other, but they're all, it's all art. But it's all art. It's all art. And and again, I can probably defend every artist and the way that they make art and what they're doing from a mutual friend of ours, talking about Jeff Koons and his stacked up shop backs and how that's not art. And I will defend Jeff Koons, but I will not defend there's only one artist that I will not defend. And I'm not going to say his name because it'll open a whole other can of worms, and I'm not going to talk about that son of a gun. I'm going to focus on positive things.
That's good. That's what you should be doing because it's a new year.
It's a new year.
We want to focus on the positive.
Yep.
Be grateful for the past.
Yep.
All right. So here's a question that came up in my mind. Maybe you won't want to cover this, but so Klimt, who was very popular.
Yes.
Brilliant pieces of art. You have not done a video on him, but you have done a video on Roy Lichtenstein, who, why? Like, what made you do a video on Roy, but not Klimt?
That's a great question. And there are a lot of artists that I have not done videos on that are well deserving of having me make a video of their work. I can't make every artwork on every title, but my focus is, and it has been from the beginning. When I first started making videos, I made videos for my classroom so I could show the video and expose students to art history without having to stand up in the front and talk about art history. I could play a video and work with students in the back on other things. So I could have what we call a flipped classroom sort of situation. And speaking of the classroom situation, I did recently get a message from a viewer of our last pod exercise, and they said, I can't think of their name off the top of my head, I don't have any notes, but they said that they helped their brother, I assume it's a little brother, but they helped their brother with art, and their art class is watching Art 101 with Mr. Burgher to expose the brother to art history.
Nice.
How cool is that?
That is cool.
And
that's what you're doing it for.
And and again, I use it as an educational tool. And I know college professors 100% have used it. I know that high school teachers 100% have used it. I know middle school teachers have 100% used it. But to the point, I think that the way that I was approaching it was I had two different classes that I was flipping. One was Art 1, one was my Art 2 class. My Art 1 focused on art history that was from the beginning to Impressionism.
Okay.
Then my second semester, my Art 2 class, was predominantly from World War II to right now. And so for each group, I needed to make content. And so even though there were tons and tons of artists that I wanted to make content on, I couldn't just focus on them because that was only one semester of my time. So I had to budget for some of these folks and some of these folks. And so I always tried to balance it out.
So it was purely based on your need for the content.
And now
for your classes.
I can kind of do whatever it is that I want to do. But like, for example, this week we got Roy Lichtenstein coming out. Next week I've got Johannes Vermeer, one of the premier Baroque painters, who is very controversial, and we'll get into that maybe another time. But you can look at these different people and say, well, how in the world do you go from one week talking about Roy Lichtenstein to the next week talking about the Baroque master Johannes Vermeer to the week after that talking about who knows what? Well, it's because I like to balance it out. I like to to have a little bit of mix of the old with the new. I don't want to be too heavy one way or the other. Like sometimes
on specific time periods or pieces, or what do I want to say? Not pieces of art, but styles of art.
Right. Well, and sometimes I just get very heavy on, like I made a Manet one and a Monet one, that I made an another impressionist and another impressionist, and I'm like, okay, I've made like 5 impressionist videos. What am I doing? I don't want to be the impressionist video guy. I want to make lots of different things. So in order to diversify the catalog, so to speak, I kind of sprinkle it around, and I think, okay, well, I haven't done a pop artist in a while. Let me get back to that. Or I haven't done a Baroque artist in a while. Let me get back to that.
Makes sense.
And that's why.
I was curious about it today as I was doing my research. So I thought it'd be an interesting question to ask you.
Well, and as we're getting closer to the very, very end here, you know, obviously the key thing is, if you like the video, like it, share it with somebody. If you think, you know what, my buddy's into art, share it with your buddy. If you have a group that and they know that if they're into art or they like art or whatever, send them my way and let them decide. You know what, that's not for me, and that's fine. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, believe it or not. But if you have friends, colleagues, people that you know that are like-minded in the ways of art and knowledge and all of that business, send them our way. I'd love for them to explore the videos. And 90-some%, like 97% of people that are watching the content aren't following. Click that, hit that subscribe button.
That's what helps us. It helps support us.
It helps to get the content out, and it reaffirms what we're doing. And thousands of people are doing it. It's free. All you got to do is click the button, and then the content will show up. It's guaranteed to show up in your subscriptions and stuff like that. There's got its own little icon there on your screen that you can navigate through. And I'm excited for the new year. I'm excited for the content we're making, and I'm excited for what it is that we're doing. And I'm excited to be able to announce that we're going to be doing this adventure together for the long term, as we have decided to go ahead and get engaged to be married.
We have New Year's Eve.
And we didn't get married. We got engaged New Year's Eve.
So, great way to start the year.
And actually, there's a German tie to that. We were going to a German restaurant, and we were celebrating New Year's, the New Year's of Germany, in a German restaurant with some German cuisine, and we decided, that's what we were going to do, is celebrate German New Year's so that we could go to bed early.
It's 5 o'clock our time versus midnight. So then we didn't have to make it to midnight.
Right.
We did, though.
We did.
I think I did, maybe.
Yeah, no,
I'm not did. Sure. You did?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we did.
And,
you're sorry.
That's staying in. So,
oh gosh.
So, anyway.
Okay. So
anyway, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and do all those things. And it's now a part of a family business.
There you go.
And
we are very excited about what's yet to come and bringing great content and
we're exploring other. You want to get into doing some content that you're more focused on. So we may be doing some things like that and looking at all kinds of different tools and tricks and things, and so we definitely appreciate everybody supporting us here on the Art 101 and the Art One-on-One and all of the things that we're creating. So anyway, not to drag it out, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye.